everyone, it's Hailey, and today I wanted to talk about some books that I have read recently. So first of all, I got my hair done and I decided rashly, because, you know, in the midst of depression, we make rash decisions, but I decided to get curtain bangs and I actually really like them. At least I didn't do like the straight across bangs because that just doesn't really suit my face, but I am really into the curtain bangs so far. I literally just got it done yesterday, but I think she did a great job. I wanted more layers in the front and everything, and I think I got what I wanted. So far, I am very happy with that decision. Also, Charlie is here to say hello. Say hello, friends. I feel like he hasn't been in videos in a little bit, but I am going to be filming on the floor for the foreseeable future because the lighting is better here when I film on the floor, so that is going to be the deal. So we will probably have more Charlie visits. Can I help you, sir? That's very invasive. But anyways, that shouldn't be for too much longer because we should be moving soon. I filmed a video, I don't know if it will be up before this one, but for my second channel, kind of talking about, I don't know, just everything, kind of what's been going on. But basically our move was delayed due to technical issues, so we should have had possession of the house by now, but we don't, unfortunately. But yeah, anyways, the whole reason that we're here today is to talk about some of the books that I've read recently. So it has obviously, by this stack, you can see it's been a little bit since I have done a recent reads video. I just haven't been reading a lot, you know, life has been weird. I talked about it in a previous video. I'm going to avoid sounding like a broken record and just move along. Side note though, it is so cold here and it really confuses me. I mean, I guess it's not that cold. It's 22 degrees, but I feel like it is so cold because usually in Windsor it would be super hot and humid, and I'm so used to that. So like, since I thought we were moving, I packed all my sweaters and everything like this, but I have been freezing lately, so I had to go and dig them out of all of the boxes, but luckily I do have them. Anyways, let's just get to it. So the first book is actually one that I finished this morning, and that is The Last Night at Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. So I saw this book, it came out this year, and I had seen it around, and I just never really looked more into it for whatever reason. Like, people were so excited about it, and for some reason I just never looked to see what it was about. And I think part of it is because I thought it was an adult book, but it actually isn't. And it's not that I won't read adult books, I just kind of tend to prefer YA. But then I found out it was YA, and I found out it was historical fiction, and I was like, well, this is exactly what I need. I have been in kind of a rut in terms of my reads where there has been nothing that really has been fully capturing my attention. I feel like most of the books that I've been reading lately have been forgettable. And it's not like, I don't know if it's me, it might be me, but I just feel like nothing is standing out as like, this is an amazing book, something that I loved in a while. And it's kind of funny because I had a little bit of a streak at the beginning of the year where I was loving what I was reading. I was having such good luck with the books that I was picking, but now it's kind of been the opposite. None of them have really been bad books, they just haven't been anything that I really think have like stood out to me in terms of the other 75 books that I've read this year, if that makes any sense. This one though did kind of change things because I feel like historical fiction tends to be the book that can kind of get me out of a rut like that. I didn't absolutely fall in love with this book, but I do think it was super important and very, very well done. This is set in the 1950s in San Francisco, California, and you're following the main character Lily as she is really discovering who she is. She is learning more about who she is as a Chinese American girl, but also her sexuality is something that she is struggling with figuring out where she belongs, especially because everything that she's been taught tells her that her being attracted and liking other girls is wrong. So she's coping with that, and you see incredible character growth in her. This book really was very immersive in terms of being inside Lily's world. Like, I totally was brought to the 1950s. It brought in the space race, and it also brought in like the Red Scare, everyone being fearful example of communism, and it truly did such a great job with the time period. And Lily as a character as well. You could see how her opinion of things was influenced by that, but you got to see so much development from her, and that I think is where this book definitely excelled. I loved watching her relationships as she learned more about who she could be and staying more true to herself. So I felt like this was a very accurate book. I think it was fantastically done. The one reason why I say I didn't fall in love with it is because it did kind of get to a point where it was more of a slow plot, and that's just kind of a personal preference thing. I would have liked if it were a little bit quicker, but I do understand, like, it was a pretty quiet plot line and it was definitely more character driven, but I just kind of felt like it did get to a point where about 60% of the way through, I thought I was almost done with the book, but there was actually quite a ways to go, and I wasn't really sure where the story was going, if that makes sense. And the reason that I didn't know that I was only 60% of the way through is because I did the majority of my reading for this book with the ebook, so that's why I didn't see like how much I had left. But I think this was a really fantastic read, definitely one worth checking out. I'm going to kind of go backwards as to what I would usually do because this was my most recent read, and I'm going to go back to the book that I read like the furthest away. I don't know how I wanted that sentence to go, but anyways, the next book that I want to talk about is The Field Guide to the North American Teenager by Ben Philippe. So I picked up this book because it's about a kid who, he's actually French Canadian. He is a Black French Canadian main character, and he has moved from Montreal to Texas, and he is experiencing like major culture shock because of how Texas is. I just felt like that would be relatable to me, like kind of the opposite of his situation that I'm in. Not that I moved from somewhere that's like Texas, but that I am now experiencing a major culture shock with the French Canadian culture. So I did really like this book. I will say that the main character is one of the most distinctive main characters I've ever read. He had such a particular voice and view on things, and I can't remember his name. Norris was just like, he was really an unforgettable main character for me, and that's kind of in a good way and in a bad way. And I did enjoy the fact that the book kind of called him out on his bullshit, really, because he can be so judgmental and really quick to judge, and he moves and doesn't really give the place a chance. He kind of is like a wrecking ball a little bit along the way, so it really ends up being a very messy situation, and he's definitely an unlikable main character in some ways. I don't think he's like the most unlikable main character I've ever read about, but sometimes you just want to like shake him and be like, what are you doing? But I think that the strength of his character really like brought this book to the next level. All of the characters actually were very well written, and I didn't like a lot of the decisions that he made. I saw where the book was going and I was annoyed by it immediately, but I understood why it was happening. So I think this was a really interesting contemporary book. I think it did a great job of like capturing the high school experience and how it kind of differs from Canada to the States. Also how there can be kind of cultural differences, and how if you don't give a place a chance, you know, then obviously it's not going to work out. So I love the fact that there were consequences for the main character's actions, because I feel like sometimes when you have an unlikable main character, it's just like, oh, they're unlikable, but nothing really like kind of puts them in their place almost. But the author really did that. Like, he definitely put him in his place, and I thought that was really great. So overall, this was a fantastic book. I like how it dealt with family and friends and being in a new environment and that whole struggle, and I definitely want to check out more by this author. So I also actually picked up a self-help book, and that was Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I actually have read this twice now because I read it and I just forget about whatever I read almost immediately. It doesn't matter how slowly I read something, doesn't matter how quickly, that's the kind of memory that I have. My brain is like, nope, we don't need to hold on to these facts, but we'll hold on to a random fact that makes me really good at Jeopardy. But anyways, this book had a lot to offer, so I physically read it, and then I also listened to the audiobook to make sure that I was fully getting the message that it had. It provides a very easy and straightforward framework for how to kind of become the person that you want to be. And I feel like I'm definitely in a transformative period where I want to make those changes, and this book gave me a great guideline and a great starting place. I loved how there was kind of no fluff, no nonsense. It wasn't just random stories all the time. Everything was very clear, and I felt like it was manageable as well. It felt like a very approachable way to take those steps, those incremental steps to make the changes that I want to. So I definitely have been referring to this book a lot. I have a lot of like things that I will think about constantly that come from this book and have been helping me along my journey of trying to kind of change things in my own life. So I might kind of talk a little bit more about this book on my second channel if you guys would be interested in that, but this is the only, I think it might be the only self-help book that I've read. I probably have read another, but I just can't remember. But I do think this one is definitely the one that has had the most impact on me. Next, I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, and I picked this book up on a whim because it was said to be inspired by, what is her name? Alexis from Schitt's Creek. I can only think of this main character's first name, which is Piper. So it's really about Piper, who she's living this lavish lifestyle. She kind of has been doing whatever she wants, like very much like Alexis from Schitt's Creek, but she ends up being sent to a small town, this fisherman's town, and she meets this gruff fisherman, kind of an enemies to lovers sort of deal, but she is dealing with, once again, kind of a culture shock of going from this lifestyle where she has all the money in the world, can do whatever she wants, throws these ridiculous parties and everything, to being in this tiny apartment with bunk beds and this rundown town where fishing is what everyone does. So you kind of get the Schitt's Creek vibes there. But this was actually my first book that I've ever read by Tessa Bailey, and I just picked it up because of the Schitt's Creek thing. Like, Schitt's Creek is my comfort show. I love that show. I think if I had one favorite TV show, that would definitely be it. So I was just immediately intrigued by this, and I did enjoy it. I just think it was very unnecessarily long, and there were also some things that were kind of set up in the plot that I didn't feel like really made sense. Like, I felt like there were very quick changes. It went immediately from this like hatred to, oh no, we can be friends, like blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of didn't feel realistic in that way. I liked the kind of, I forget what it's called, the dynamic between the two of them, but where he's like soft on the inside, but all gruff. And then I don't know what that's specifically called, but I did like that. However, there was a point, like, I think this was a bit too smutty for me. I just like a certain level of smut, and I think this one kind of was like, wow, especially because it brought in so many, like, she kept on talking about how like masculine he was and how manly he was, and there was a lot of that, and I was kind of like meh about that. So I did kind of struggle with their relationship dynamic a little bit, but it was like a cute, fun read. I don't regret having read it. I just think for a while it did really, really drag on, and I was like, okay, I've kind of had enough, we can move on to the point of it. So I think maybe if the pacing had been a little bit faster, I would have liked it a bit more. Next, I read Where the Rhythm Takes You by Sarah Doss. So this book was actually sent to me by the author, and I was really excited because I had been intrigued by it, and it definitely didn't disappoint. I really liked this one. So it is set on an island resort in Tobago, and the main character has grown up on this resort. It's her family's resort, and she has always loved it. She's lived a really great life there, but she has been struggling since 3 years ago. Her mother died, and her best friend slash first love, he moved away at the same time. So she never has really coped and moved past her mother's death, and now her best friend slash first love has returned, and he's with this girl, like he's with this whole group of people who they're social media influencers, and she ends up having to be their tour guide for Tobago. This story was definitely driven by the main character and her accepting loss and kind of moving on past everything that has happened 3 years ago. She was very stilted and kind of stuck in that past. She hadn't seen her ex since then, and they had a falling out, and they had been close since they were kids, so she has been struggling with that. And also the loss of her mother is also obviously like a big issue for her, but I felt like you saw a lot of development from her, and the setting was so incredible. incredibly well done. I loved it. Like, it was amazing. It definitely brought me to this island setting. I feel like I learned so much about the culture of Tobago, and it just felt very real. I loved the resort and everything, and just, it truly was a setting that like spoke to my heart and was just great to read about. So I did really like this book. I thought it was very successful in what it did, and I would definitely like to see more from this author. The last few books that I have to talk about, I probably am going to be a little bit more brief because honestly, they didn't really stand out to me, and I read them quite a while ago now, so I don't fully remember. But the first book is Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. So I actually DNF'd this one, and the reason that I DNF'd it is because this is about rival food trucks and they're in Maui. So I was like, wow, this is perfect to read for summer. And the introduction of the love interest, it just turned me off immediately. I just did not like it. Like, I really struggle with enemies to lovers, and in this case I was like, well, this is just stupid. Like, I felt like he just seemed like an ass, and there was nothing that he could have done that would have redeemed it for me. And then to top it off, they ended up going, like, she ended up going away to England, and I was like, well, that's not the setting that I thought I was going to get, which is a really minor thing, but when I was already kind of not really into the story, it just was kind of the cherry on top. I liked how the Filipino culture was coming into it and seeing the main character and her mother and everything, but I just felt like on top of all of that, there was also a lot of like convenient suspension of disbelief things. Like, it really irked me, and like I said, I think it's because I already was kind of meh about the book, so I just decided to DNF it. Next is Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. I liked this book. It just like doesn't really stand out to me. I think it's a great summer read. If you're looking for something that's cute and summery, this is definitely it, because it is actually set at an ice cream stand where all of these girls from this town have been working at this ice cream stand for years and years and years, since it was opened by this woman in the 40s during World War II. And the main character has been working at the ice cream stand, and she finally is going to get to be head girl. I don't really know what it's called, but like, she's going to be leading the ice cream stand, which she's always wanted to do. She's so excited for it, but it ends up that the owner who started the whole stand, she's very old and she ends up dying, and the status of the whole stand comes into question, and then her grandnephew ends up coming to run things. So it's kind of shaking everything up, and she's dealing with that, but there's also like a cute romance. It definitely was a fun beach, seaside, coastal town sort of summer read, and I had a good time with it. I just don't think there's anything that like fully stands out to me. I think the one thing that stands out is the main character definitely seemed very distinctive to me. Like, she is so dedicated to this ice cream stand. She is so dedicated to work and everything, and that was really interesting. And the last book is You Have a Match by Emma Lord. So this book also deals with a social media star. Actually, I feel like I've read quite a few of those in the past little bit. I don't know why. Actually, in Where the Rhythm Takes You, it's like a Grammy nominated band, and they also have social media, obviously. And then It Happened One Summer, Piper also has social media and stuff. So many social media things happening. But this follows a main character who is a photographer, and she ends up taking a DNA test to impress this guy, which I still don't really fully understand how that was supposed to impress him, but maybe I just kind of missed that. Like, I kind of get it, but then I also don't. I don't know. But she ends up, upon taking this test, she discovers that she actually has a sister, and she's very confused about this because like, it's not even a half sister or anything. She has like a full-fledged sister that she didn't know about. So she has a lot of questions, and she ends up finding out that her sister is a social media star, and she is going to this camp. So she ends up going to the camp to meet her sister and hopefully get answers. So it's very much Parent Trap in that way. But I think what I was missing from this book was the main character was pretty unlikable for me. Like, I kind of struggled with her a little bit. I think she was different, but I just had some issues with her at times, and maybe because she kind of reminded me a lot of myself when I was like her age, like 16, which is not a good thing. But I liked the camp setting and everything, liked the Parent Trap sort of elements to it. It just, like, it kind of was missing that wit and the writing that I fell in love with in Tweet Cute. There was nothing wrong with it per se, but Tweet Cute had such fantastic writing. Like, it was so funny, and this didn't really really have those moments for me. It's a different story, so it makes sense, but it was just a little bit of a letdown because of that. So those are all of the books that I have read recently. I am hoping to read some more in September. I am actually going to be filming a September TBR after this, but since the move has been pushed back, like, I don't know, I'm just eager to get somewhere and settled so then I can actually like plan out and have time to read, because whew, that has not been the case lately. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I'm getting back to like my regular uploading schedule where I will be posting 2 to 3 videos every single week. And what else did I want to say? Oh, if you've read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts on them, and I will see you guys in a new video soon. Bye!